The meeting room was cold. Timin Huang sat at the long metal table and tried not to show his nervousness. Around him, alien beings from across the galaxy filled the other seats. Some had scales. Some had fur. Some looked almost human, but their eyes were wrong. Too many colors. Too bright. Timin was here to talk about trade. Earth wanted to sell their technology. Other worlds wanted to buy it. Simple business. He had done this work for 5 years now. He knew how to smile, how to bow, how to make aliens feel comfortable. That was his job as a diplomat. But something felt wrong today. The Valon representatives sat across from him. They were tall, almost 7 feet, with gray skin that looked like stone. Their leader was called High Regent Vornthax. He wore dark robes that seemed to swallow the light. When he spoke, his voice sounded like rocks grinding together. "Your offer is not acceptable," Vornthax said. Timin kept his face calm. "Perhaps we can find a middle ground. Earth is willing to—" "You misunderstand," the High Regent interrupted. "We do not wish to trade as equals. Earth will provide us with technology. You will receive our protection. This is the only arrangement we will accept." Timin felt his stomach drop. This was not a trade negotiation. This was a demand for surrender. The Valon wanted Earth to become their servant. "I'm afraid that's impossible," Timin said carefully. "Earth values its independence. We can offer favorable trade terms, but we cannot—" The door slammed shut. Timin jumped in his seat. Around the room, other diplomats began standing up, moving away from the table. They knew something he did not. Valon soldiers poured into the room. They wore black armor and carried weapons that hummed with energy. Timin's security guards reached for their guns, but they were too slow. Blue light filled the room. The guards dropped to the floor, dead before they could scream. Timin tried to run. Strong hands grabbed him from behind. He struggled, but the Valon soldier was far too strong. "Let me go," he shouted. "This is a diplomatic station. You cannot—" Vornthax walked over slowly. He looked down at Timin with something like amusement. "Your people need to learn respect. You are young in this galaxy. You think you are strong because you have ships and weapons. But you are children. We will teach you your place." Something sharp pressed against Timin's neck. He felt a sting, then everything became fuzzy. His legs stopped working. The soldier holding him was the only thing keeping him upright. "Take him to the ship," Vornthax ordered. "Make sure the other human survives to tell the story. Let Earth know we have their diplomat." Through blurry eyes, Timin saw Ambassador Juna Lim hiding under a table. She was bleeding from her arm but alive. She met his gaze for just a moment. Her hand was on her communicator. She was calling for help. Then darkness took him. When Timin woke up, he was in a cell. The walls were made of some kind of crystal that glowed with pale blue light. He could see through them, but when he touched the surface, it felt solid as steel and cold enough to hurt. His head ached. His mouth was dry. He wore the same clothes from the meeting, but someone had taken his shoes, his watch, and the small emergency beacon all diplomats carried. The cell was small. 10 steps in one direction, 8 in the other. There was a bench that was too hard to be comfortable, and a hole in the floor that he assumed was a toilet. Nothing else. Beyond the crystal walls, he could see a large room. Other cells lined the walls, most of them empty. In the center was a desk where a Valon guard sat, watching screens. Timin walked to the wall and pressed his hand against it. It did not even warm under his touch. He was trapped. The guard looked up. It said something in the Valon language, harsh and guttural. When Timin did not respond, it pressed a button. A screen appeared on the wall, and Timin saw himself on the news. The headline was in several languages. He read the human translation. "Human diplomat arrested for violating galactic law." It was a lie. Everyone would know it was a lie. But the Valon did not care. This was about power. About humiliation. Days passed. Timin did not know how many. The light in his cell never changed. Food arrived through a slot in the wall twice a day. It was gray paste that tasted like metal. He ate it anyway because he needed strength. On what he thought was the 4th day, a visitor came. The Valon who entered was smaller than the others, with scars across its face. It wore no armor, just a simple black uniform. When it spoke, its voice was soft. That somehow made it more frightening. "I am Sivrath," it said. "I am here to ask you questions." "I have nothing to say," Timin replied. His voice sounded strange after days of silence. Sivrath smiled. It was not a friendly expression. I do not need you to say anything. I am here to make sure you understand your situation. Your Earth believes it is powerful, but you are far from home. Your fleet cannot reach you. Your government will negotiate for your release. They will pay what we ask. And when you return home, you will tell them that the Valan ascendancy is not to be challenged. Taman looked Sivrath in the eye. You're wrong. About what? About everything. Earth won't negotiate. They won't pay. And they certainly won't let you keep me. Sivrath laughed. Your loyalty to your people is admirable, but it is also foolish. We have studied humans. You are emotional, impulsive. You will do what is practical. You will pay our price and accept our terms in you. No, Taman said quietly. We won't, because humans don't abandon our own. Ever. Sivrath's smile faded. It studied Taman for a long moment. Then it turned and left without another word. Taman sat down on the hard bench. His hands were shaking, but not from fear. From anger. The Valan thought they knew humanity. They thought they could predict what Earth would do. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Far across the galaxy, on Earth, Ambassador Juna Lim's ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel. She had been flying for 3 days straight, barely sleeping, barely eating. Her arm was bandaged where the Valon weapon had burned her. But she was alive, and she carried the proof of what had happened. The moment her ship entered orbit, military vessels surrounded her. They escorted her down to the capital city. She was taken directly to the United Earth Council building. The council chamber was full. Every representative was present. The air was thick with tension. Juna stood before them, exhausted but determined. Show them, the council president said. Juna activated her communicator. A hologram appeared in the center of the room. It showed the meeting. It showed the Valon soldiers. It showed Taman's guards being murdered. It showed Taman being dragged away. The council members watched in silence. When the recording ended, no one spoke for several seconds. Then Admiral Hyejin Kang stood up. She was a tall woman with gray hair and eyes like ice. She had fought in 3 wars and never lost a battle. When she spoke, her voice was calm. That made her words even more terrifying. We do not negotiate with kidnappers. We do not pay ransoms. We bring our people home. Prepare for war. The room erupted. Some council members tried to argue for diplomacy. Others demanded immediate action. But Admiral Kang did not sit down. She simply stood there waiting until the room fell silent again. This is not about one man, she said. This is about what happens if we show weakness. If we negotiate, if we pay. Every human in the galaxy becomes a target. Every explorer, every merchant, every scientist working on distant worlds. The Valan took Taman to humiliate us, to prove we are weak. We must prove them wrong. We must show the entire galaxy that you do not touch our people. Not ever. The president looked around the room. Then she nodded slowly. How long do you need? 2 weeks to gather the fleet. 3 weeks to reach Valan space. Don't make it happen. Admiral Kang saluted. Then she turned and walked out of the chamber. Behind her, the council began issuing orders. The military mobilization would begin immediately. Earth was going to war. The shipyards never stopped working. Day and night, sparks flew as workers welded new armor plates onto warships. Every space station around Earth was busy. Ships that had been in repair were rushed back into service. Ships that were too old to fight were stripped for parts. Admiral Kang stood in the command center watching the displays. Each dot of light represented a ship. There were hundreds of them. Soon there would be thousands. The 5th Fleet reports ready, an officer said. The 8th Fleet will be ready in 6 hours. Good. What about Captain An? His ship left 2 days ago. He should reach Valon space tomorrow. Kang nodded. Captain Do-hyun An commanded a stealth reconnaissance ship called the Silent Arrow. It was small, fast, and almost impossible to detect. His mission was simple but dangerous. Get close to the Valon homeworld. Find out where they were keeping Taman. Map their defenses. Then get out without being caught. If he was discovered, he would die. The Silent Arrow carried no weapons. It could not fight. It could only run and hide. Dr. Mireille Song walked into the command center carrying a tablet. She was the chief xenostrategist, which meant she studied alien behavior. Admiral, I have the analysis you requested. Tell me. The Valon expect us to negotiate. Their entire strategy is based on that assumption. They have fought dozens of wars, but always against species that value diplomacy over direct action. They think we will follow the same pattern. They are not prepared for a full military assault. What are their military capabilities? superior in technology. Their shields are more advanced than ours. Their energy weapons have longer range. Ship for ship, they are stronger. But they have never faced an enemy willing to accept heavy casualties. They fight clean wars with minimal losses. We do not. We fight to win no matter the cost. That is our advantage. Admiral Kang studied the data on the tablet. Dr. Song was right. The Valon were strong, but they were also arrogant. They had been the dominant power in this region for 500 years. They did not expect real resistance. That was going to cost them everything. Across human space, the response was overwhelming. When people heard that Taman had been captured, they did not panic. They did not demand negotiation. They got angry. Civilian companies donated supplies to the military. Factories that made farming equipment switched to making ammunition. Restaurants near military bases provided free food to soldiers preparing to deploy. Parents sent messages to their children in the fleet, telling them to fight hard and come home safe. This was not just the military going to war. This was all of humanity. On the news, reporters asked politicians if this was the right decision. The answer was always the same. One representative said it clearly. We do not leave our people behind. That is not a policy. That is who we are. Across the galaxy, other species watched with confusion and concern. Some sent messages urging Earth to reconsider. Some warned that military action would destabilize the region. A few quietly pulled their diplomats from Valon space. The Galactic Council called an emergency session. Representatives from 50 different species gathered to discuss the crisis. Most of them thought Earth was overreacting. This is madness, a delegate from the Keltor hegemony said. One diplomat is not worth starting a war. The humans are young, another said. They do not understand how things work in the galaxy. Someone must make them see reason. But a few older species said nothing. They had lived long enough to see what happened when you pushed certain species too far. They recognized the signs. Earth was not bluffing. Admiral Kang sent one final message to the Valon government. It was broadcast on every channel in every language. The message was simple. You have 48 hours to return Envoy Taman Huang to us unharmed. If you do not, we will come for him. This is your only warning. High Regent Vornthax received the message in his throne room. He watched it once, then laughed. His advisors joined in. The idea that humans would attack the Valon ascendancy was absurd. Send a response, Vornthax ordered. Make sure it is insulting. These humans need to learn humility. The response was sent within the hour. It showed Taman in his cell wearing chains. Vornthax stood beside him, smiling. The message was clear. We have your diplomat. We are not afraid of you. Come and try to take him if you dare. On Earth, Admiral Kang watched the Valon response. Her expression did not change. She simply closed the video and looked at her staff. All fleets prepare to jump. We leave in 6 hours. In his cell, Taman did not know about the ultimatum. He did not know about the fleet gathering above Earth. He only knew that something was changing. The Valon guards were nervous. They stood straighter. They checked their weapons more often. Emergency drills happened twice a day now. Taman could hear alarms in the distance. Sivrath visited him again. The interrogator did not smile this time. It stood outside the cell and studied Taman for a long moment. Your people have made a threat, Sivrath said. They claim they will attack us if we do not release you. They will, Taman said quietly. It is an empty threat. Your fleet is strong, but not strong enough to challenge the Valon ascendancy. Your leaders know this. They are simply posturing for their population. Taman stood up and walked to the crystal wall. He looked Sivrath directly in the eye. You still do not understand. This is not about military strength. This is about principle. Humans do not negotiate with people who take hostages. We do not calculate the cost. We simply act, and right now every ship, every soldier, every citizen of Earth has one goal. Get me back. That is foolish. Maybe, but it is who we are. Sivrath said nothing. It turned and left. But Taman noticed something. The interrogator's hands were shaking. Good. They were starting to understand. Above Earth, the fleet assembled. 700 warships, 3,000 support vessels, 100,000 Marines. It was the largest military force humanity had ever gathered in one place. Admiral Kang stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Thunder Child. Around her, officers worked at their stations. The main screen showed the rest of the fleet spreading out in formation. This was it. This was the moment that would define humanity's place in the galaxy. They could turn back. They could negotiate. They could choose the safe path, or they could show every alien species out there that humans meant what they said. The timer reached 0. Admiral Kang gave the order she had been preparing for 2 weeks. All ships jumped to Valon space. The fleet disappeared in flashes of light. They were going to war. Captain An watched from the edge of Valon space as the human fleet arrived. Thousands of ships appeared out of faster-than-light travel all at once. It was the most beautiful and terrifying thing he had ever seen. His stealth ship was still hidden, floating among the asteroids near the Valon homeworld. He had spent 3 days mapping their defenses. He knew where their shield generators were. He knew where their weapon platforms orbited. And most importantly, he knew exactly where they were keeping Taman. Silent arrow to Thunderchild, he transmitted on the secure channel. I have the target location. Sending coordinates now. Received, Admiral Kang replied. Good work, Captain. Now get clear of the combat zone. With respect, Admiral, I would like to stay and watch. There was a pause. Then Kang's voice came back and An could hear the slight smile in it. Permission granted. Stay hidden. An settled back in his chair. The Valon fleet was scrambling now, moving to intercept the human armada. Their ships were beautiful, all curves and glowing energy shields. They looked powerful. They had no idea what was about to hit them. The battle for Taman Huang was about to begin. The first Valon defense station died in silence. Space had no air, so there was no sound when the missiles hit. But from Captain An's hiding spot, he could see everything. 30 human missiles struck the station at the same moment. The shields flared bright blue, held for 2 seconds, then collapsed. The second wave of missiles punched through the metal hull like paper. The station broke apart. Pieces spun away into the darkness. There were 300 Valon soldiers on that station. Now there were none. The human fleet did not slow down. They moved toward the next target. War Master Krelax watched from his command ship. He had been a soldier for 60 years. He had fought in 20 battles and won them all. He commanded the finest fleet in this region of space. He was not worried. Then he saw what the humans were doing, and cold fear touched his heart. The human ships were not fighting like civilized species. They did not form neat battle lines. They did not follow the established rules of engagement. They attacked in groups, 6 or 7 ships focusing on one Valon vessel. When a human ship was damaged, it did not retreat. It kept fighting until it was destroyed. They are using suicide tactics, one of his officers shouted. A damaged destroyer just rammed the shield generator on Station 3. Krelax stared at the display. The officer was right. A human ship with a broken engine had pointed itself at a critical target and fired its thrusters. The collision destroyed both the ship and the station. What kind of species does this? Krelax whispered. All ships engage the enemy, he ordered. Show them the power of the Valon ascendancy. The Valon fleet moved forward. Their ships were magnificent, sleek hulls covered in energy shields that glowed like small suns. Their weapons could tear through armor from 100 miles away. They were beautiful and deadly, but the human fleet was like a swarm of angry insects. They came from every direction. They used tactics Krelax had never seen before. Small groups of human ships would pretend to retreat, drawing Valon vessels into ambushes. Damaged ships would target important systems, sacrificing themselves to cripple larger vessels, and they never, ever stopped coming. On the Thunderchild, Admiral Kang watched the battle unfold. Her face showed no emotion, but inside her heart was heavy. She could see the casualty reports. 23 ships destroyed, 41 badly damaged, 5,000 crew members dead. But they were winning. The Valon fleet was in chaos. For every human ship lost, 3 Valon vessels were eliminated. The outer defense ring was broken. The path to the planet was clear. Admiral, the Valon are trying to retreat, an officer reported. Do not let them. We need to hold them here until the orbital defenses are down. Yes, Admiral. Kang opened a channel to all human ships. This is Admiral Kang. I know the cost is high. I know we are losing friends and comrades. But remember why we are here. One of ours was taken. We do not leave our people behind. Not today, not ever. Keep fighting. Across the fleet, captains and crews heard her words. They tightened their grips on their controls. They checked their weapons. They prepared for the next wave of combat. No one questioned the mission. No one suggested retreat. Taman was one of them, and they were going to bring him home. On the Valan homeworld, alarms screamed across the capital city. Citizens looked up at the sky and saw flashes of light. The battle was visible even through the atmosphere. Their orbital defenses were being destroyed. High Regent Vornthax stood in his war room surrounded by his generals. They were all shouting at once, suggesting strategies, demanding reinforcements, blaming each other for the disaster. Silence, Vornthax roared. The room went quiet. How did this happen? We were told the humans would negotiate. They are not like other species, one general said quietly. They do not think like we do. We took something of theirs. Now they are taking it back. At what cost? They are losing dozens of ships. They do not care about the cost. That is what makes them dangerous. Vornthax turned to look at the battle display. The human fleet was like a wall of steel, pushing through every defense. His proud armada was being destroyed. Ships that had served the ascendancy for generations were burning wrecks. For the first time in his long life, Vornthax felt real fear. Contact the human admiral. Tell her we will return the prisoner. My lord, that shows weakness. Do it. The message was sent. Vornthax waited for a response. Seconds turned into minutes. Finally, a communication came through. It was not a message. It was a broadcast. Admiral Kang spoke to the entire Valan system, making sure everyone could hear. We gave you a chance to return him peacefully. You chose to mock us instead. Now we are coming for him. Evacuate your civilian areas near military installations. We will destroy every orbital defense. We will eliminate every military base, and we will take our diplomat back. This is not negotiation. This is a statement. The transmission ended. Vornthax stood in stunned silence. She had refused his surrender. The humans were not going to stop. In his cell, Taman heard explosions in the distance. The crystal walls vibrated with each impact. Something big was happening. The fortress was under attack. The guard station outside his cell was abandoned. All the Valan soldiers had been called to defend the building. Taman was alone. He stood at the wall and looked up. Through the crystal ceiling, he could see the sky. It was full of fire. Ships were burning up in the atmosphere. Missiles streaked down from orbit, hitting military targets across the city. Taman had been in this cell for 3 weeks. 3 weeks of isolation and fear. 3 weeks of wondering if Earth would come for him. Now he had his answer. A massive explosion rocked the fortress. The lights went out. Emergency power kicked in, bathing everything in red light. Taman heard shouting, gunfire, more explosions. The crystal wall of his cell flickered. The energy field that kept it solid was failing. Taman pushed against it with both hands. It bent slightly. He pushed harder, using all his strength. The wall gave way. Taman stumbled out of the cell into the guard station. Alarms were screaming. Smoke filled the air. He could taste it, sharp and bitter. He had to find cover. He had to stay alive until the rescue team arrived. Because they were coming. He knew they were coming. Above the planet, the orbital battle was ending. The Valan fleet was broken. Less than a third of their ships remained, and most of those were retreating. War Master Krellax was dead, his command ship torn apart by railgun fire. Admiral Kang surveyed the battlefield. The cost had been terrible. A quarter of her fleet was destroyed or too damaged to continue fighting. Thousands of her people were dead. But the path was clear. The orbital space belonged to humanity now. Begin orbital bombardment of military targets, she ordered. Avoid civilian areas. Prepare the assault teams for drop. The human fleet moved into position above the planet. Missiles launched from 100 ships at once. They fell through the atmosphere like shooting stars. On the ground, Valan military bases exploded. Communication towers crumbled. Shield generators melted into slag. It was methodical, efficient, devastating. Across the galaxy, other species watched in horror. This was not how wars were supposed to be fought. This was not civilized. This was total warfare, and the humans were very, very good at it. Lieutenant Commander Jiwan Park stood in the dropship with her team. 200 Marines, all wearing heavy armor, all carrying enough weapons to fight a small war by themselves, which was good, because that was exactly what they were about to do. Listen up, Park shouted over the roar of the engines. Our mission is simple. Get into that fortress. Find Taman Huang, get him out. Anyone who tries to stop us dies. Anyone who surrenders lives. Any questions? No one said anything. They all knew the mission. They all knew the risks. They all knew that some of them would not be coming back. But that was okay, because this was what humans did. They went into danger to save their own. 30 seconds to drop. The pilot called. Park checked her weapon one last time. Then she looked at her team. These were the best soldiers humanity had. Every one of them had volunteered for this mission. Let's bring him home, she said. The dropship doors opened. Park and her team jumped into the smoke and fire below. The rescue had begun. The fortress walls exploded inward. Lieutenant Commander Park and her team came through the smoke like ghosts in heavy armor. Their weapons fired in controlled bursts. Phelan guards fell before they could even aim. First squad, secure this corridor, Park shouted. Second squad with me. The fortress had been designed to be a maze. Narrow hallways that forced attackers to move slowly. Thick doors that could seal off entire sections. Automated defense guns hidden in the ceiling. The Vallon had spent years making this building impossible to assault. The humans did not care. When they found a sealed door, they blew it open with explosives. When defense guns activated, they destroyed them with grenades. When Vallon soldiers tried to hold a position, the Marines simply overwhelmed them with firepower. This was not a careful operation. This was a hammer smashing through glass. Park's helmet display showed a map of the fortress. Captain An had sent them detailed information. Taman was being held 3 levels down, in a high-security detention area. The map showed 2 routes to reach him. Park chose the most direct one. They fought through the first level in 15 minutes. The Vallon guards were skilled warriors, but they had never faced humans in combat before. The Marines moved too fast, hit too hard, worked together too well. Second level clear, a squad leader reported. 5 casualties. 2 critical, sending them back to the dropship. Acknowledged, Park said. Keep moving. Taman heard the battle getting closer. He had found a small maintenance room and hidden inside. His whole body hurt. 3 weeks of bad food and little exercise had left him weak. But he was alive. He just needed to stay alive a little longer. The door to the maintenance room opened. Taman pressed himself against the wall, ready to fight with his bare hands if necessary. It was Sivrath. The interrogator looked different now, no longer calm and confident. Its uniform was torn. It carried a weapon. There you are, Sivrath said. I have been looking for you. Taman straightened up. He would not cower, not now. Your fortress is falling. Your fleet is destroyed. Let me go and maybe you survive this. Survive? Look what your people have done. They have killed thousands, destroyed our orbital defenses, all for one person. This is madness. No, Taman said quietly. This is loyalty. You took me to prove we were weak. Now we have proven that we are not. We do not negotiate. We do not compromise. We get our people back. Sivrath raised its weapon. The barrel was shaking.
Then you will die here and your people will have come for nothing. The wall exploded.
Sivrath flew backward, hitting the floor hard. Taman covered his face as debris rained down. When he looked up, he saw armored figures moving through the smoke. Human soldiers. His people. One of them stepped forward and removed her helmet. Lieutenant Commander Park looked at him with sharp eyes. Taman Huang? Yes, he managed to say. His voice cracked. Yes, that's me. Good, let's get you home. On the floor, Sivrath groaned. It tried to reach for its weapon. Park stepped on the Vallon's hand, pinning it down. Did this one hurt you? Park asked Taman. Taman looked down at Sivrath. The interrogator had tormented him for weeks, had tried to break his spirit, had threatened to kill him just moments ago. Yes, Taman said, but we have bigger problems. We need to get out of here. Park nodded. She pulled Sivrath's weapon away and kicked it across the room. Then she helped Taman to his feet. Another Marine offered him a spare helmet and a vest of light armor. Can you walk? Park asked. Yes, I'm weak, but I can move. Good. Stay in the middle of the formation. We're going back the way we came. Getting out was harder than getting in. The Vallon forces had regrouped. They knew the humans had their prisoner now. If they could kill Taman, the human assault would have been for nothing. So they threw everything they had at the extraction team. The Marines fought through corridor after corridor. Taman stayed in the center, surrounded by armored bodies. He watched as these soldiers, people he had never met, gave everything to protect him. One Marine took a hit meant for Taman. The shot punched through his armor and he fell. 2 others grabbed him and kept moving, refusing to leave him behind. 20 meters to the exit, someone shouted. A massive Vallon soldier in heavy armor blocked the corridor ahead. It carried a weapon that looked like a miniature cannon. When it fired, the blast tore through 2 Marines instantly. Grenade! Park threw the explosive perfectly. It bounced off the wall and landed at the Vallon's feet. The soldier had time to look down before the explosion threw it backward. The team rushed through the opening. Taman could see daylight ahead. The exit was right there. They were going to make it. Then something hit him from behind. Pain exploded across his back. He fell forward, his legs suddenly not working. Strong hands caught him before he hit the ground. Man down.
Taman is hit!
Park appeared beside him. She rolled him over carefully. Where are you hit? My back, Taman gasped. I can't feel my legs. Park checked the wound quickly. Her face was grim. The vest stopped most of it. You have some burns and maybe a broken rib. Your legs will come back. Can you hold on? Yes. Good. She picked him up like he weighed nothing. Move! Double time to the extraction point! They burst out of the fortress into chaos. The city around them was burning. Vallon soldiers were everywhere, but so were human Marines. Dropships filled the sky, providing cover fire. One landed nearby, its doors already open. Park ran for the ship, still carrying Taman. Bullets and energy blasts filled the air around them. A Marine to their left fell. Another kept running despite being wounded. They all made it to the dropship and threw themselves inside. Go! Go, go, Park shouted. The dropship lifted off. Through the open door, Taman could see the fortress growing smaller. They had done it. They had actually done it. On the Thunderchild, Admiral Kang received the message she had been waiting for. Admiral, extraction team reports mission successful. Taman Huang is secured and en route to the flagship. He is wounded but stable. Kang allowed herself a small smile. Acknowledged. Recall all assault teams. Begin withdrawal from the planet. What about the remaining Vallon military installations? Destroy them. All of them. I want to make sure they remember this day. The human fleet opened fire one last time. Every remaining Vallon military base on the planet was targeted. Orbital strikes fell like rain. When it was over, the Vallon Ascendancy's military power was broken. High Regent Vornthax watched from his command center. His empire was in ruins. His fleet was destroyed. His military was crippled, and all because he had taken one human diplomat. He had thought he was teaching humanity a lesson. Instead, humanity had taught the galaxy something far more important. Never take one of their own, because they will come for them. And they will burn everything in their path to get them back. Taman was taken to the medical bay immediately. Doctors worked on him while Admiral Kang stood nearby. The wound was not as bad as it had first seemed. The armor had done its job. He would recover. When the doctors finished, Kang approached his bed. Taman tried to sit up, but she gestured for him to stay down. Admiral, Taman said. His voice was hoarse. I'm sorry. So many people died because of me. Kang shook her head. They did not die because of you. They died doing what humans do, protecting our own. The cost of abandoning you would have been far higher. Every human in the galaxy would have become a target. Now the galaxy knows. You do not touch our people. Still, I wish there had been another way. So do I. But there was not. Rest now. We are going home. The fleet began its journey back to Earth. Behind them, the Vallon homeworld burned. It would take years for them to rebuild, decades to recover their military strength. And they would never forget what happened when they captured a human. Neither would anyone else in the galaxy. The fleet jumped back into Earth space exactly 3 weeks after they had left. Every ship was damaged. Some were barely holding together. But they had all come home. And they had brought Taman with them. News of the victory had arrived days earlier. Now as the fleet approached Earth, millions of people watched from the ground. The ships were battered and scarred. Over 100 vessels were missing. But the mission was complete. Taman stood in the observation deck of the Thunderchild looking down at his home world. He had spent 3 weeks in captivity, thinking he might never see Earth again. Now here it was, blue and beautiful and safe. Admiral Kang joined him at the window. She looked tired. There were new lines on her face that had not been there before. How are you feeling? She asked. Better. The doctors say I will make a full recovery. Good. You will need your strength. The council wants to hear from you. So does the media. Everyone wants to know what happened. Taman nodded. He knew there would be questions, investigations. People would want to understand why this war had been necessary. What will you tell them? He asked. Kang was silent for a moment. The truth. That we do not abandon our people. That the cost of showing weakness would have been far higher than the cost of this war. And that the galaxy now understands what it means to cross humanity. The memorial service was held a week later. Thousands gathered in the capital city. The names of every person who died in the Valon War were read aloud. It took hours. Soldiers, ship crew, medical staff. All of them had given their lives to uphold a principle. Taman attended in his formal diplomatic uniform. He stood with the other survivors and listened as each name was called. He knew some of them. The guards who had died trying to protect him at the station. The Marines who had fallen during his rescue. All of them were gone because he had been captured. When it came time for speeches, Admiral Kang took the stage. She looked out at the crowd, and when she spoke, her voice carried across the silence. We gather today to honor those who fell in the Valon War. They were soldiers, sailors, and support staff. They were parents, children, friends. They came from every corner of human space. And they all died for the same reason. To bring one of our own home. She paused, letting her words sink in. Some have asked if their sacrifice was worth it, if one life was worth so many. I will tell you what I told my officers before we went to war. This was never just about one man. This was about who we are as a species, about the principles that define us. We do not calculate the value of a life. We do not negotiate with those who take our people hostage. We simply act. We bring them home, no matter the cost. The crowd was absolutely silent. The galaxy watched what we did. Some called us reckless. Some called us violent. Some called us insane. But they all learned the same lesson. You do not touch our people, because if you do, we will come for them. We will move heaven and earth. We will fight through any obstacle, and we will bring them home. Kang stepped down from the stage. The crowd stood in respect. And then slowly they began to clap. It was not a celebration. It was acknowledgement. Recognition of what had been done and why. Across the galaxy, the impact of the war spread like ripples in water. The Valon ascendancy was broken. High Regent Vornthax had been removed from power. His people sued for peace, offering reparations and promising never to threaten humanity again. But the real change was in how other species viewed humanity. Before the war, humans had been seen as young and naive, aggressive but not truly dangerous. That perception was gone now. The Keltor hegemony sent a formal request for a military alliance. The Dorvan Collective opened new trade negotiations with much better terms than before. Even species that had been hostile became cautious and respectful. Dr. Mireille Song presented her analysis to the United Earth Council. The war accomplished something that centuries of diplomacy could not. We have established ourselves as a major power, not because we are the strongest or most advanced, but because we demonstrated absolute commitment to our principles. Other species understand now that humans mean what they say. Ambassador Juna Lim returned to diplomatic service. She found that negotiations were different now. When she spoke, other species listened. They remembered what happened when humans were crossed. Her words carried weight because everyone knew the military might backing them. At a conference 6 months after the war, a delegate from another species approached her during a break. "Tell me something," the alien said. "Would your people really do it again? Would they wage another war for a single captured human?" Juna did not hesitate. "Yes, without question. Every time." The delegate studied her for a long moment. Then it nodded slowly. "I believe you. And that is why no one will try." Taman struggled with his return to normal life. The medical staff had healed his physical injuries, but the psychological scars took longer. He had nightmares about the cell, about Sivreth, about the moment he thought he would die before rescue arrived. The council offered him a desk job. Safe work on Earth where he would never be at risk again. He turned it down. Why? The president asked. "After what you went through, no one would blame you for wanting to stay home." Taman looked her in the eye. "Because people died to get me back. The least I can do is make sure their sacrifice meant something. I need to be out there working for peace, so that no one else has to go through what I did." So he returned to diplomatic service, but he was assigned to human-controlled space, working with colonies and outposts, building relationships, strengthening bonds, making sure that humanity remained united and strong. Admiral Kang continued to lead the fleet. The war had changed her too. She had ordered thousands of people into battle. had made the cold calculation that their lives were worth the message it would send. She would carry that weight for the rest of her life, but she also knew she had been right. The Valon War had established humanity as a force to be respected. More importantly, it had proven that Earth would never abandon its people. That principle was now known across the galaxy. Lieutenant Commander Park received a promotion and command of the Elite Special Operations Division. Her team had become legends, soldiers who could be deployed anywhere, anytime to rescue humans in danger. They trained constantly, ready for the next crisis, because everyone knew there would be another crisis someday. The galaxy was a dangerous place, but now at least everyone knew the rules. Touch a human and you answered to all of humanity. 5 years later, a young alien student studied the Valon War in a history class on a distant world. The instructor was an old scholar who had lived through many conflicts. This war was unusual, the instructor explained. Most species fight for territory, for resources, for power. The humans fought for none of those things. They fought for a principle. The student raised a tentacle. Was it worth it? So many died for one person. The instructor was quiet for a moment. The humans would say yes, because to them it was never just about one person. It was about loyalty, about never abandoning their own, about sending a message that would protect all future humans across the galaxy. Did the message work? Look at the historical records. In the 5 years since the Valon War, not a single human has been captured or held hostage by any species. Before the war, there were dozens of incidents every year. The message worked. The student thought about this. So the humans are dangerous? Yes, but not in the way you might think. They are dangerous because they are loyal, because they will sacrifice everything to protect their own. Other species might be stronger or more advanced, but humans are the ones you truly do not want as enemies, because they never give up, they never back down, and they never ever leave anyone behind. On Earth, Taman stood at the memorial wall where the names of the fallen were carved into black stone. He came here often, especially when he felt overwhelmed by the weight of what had happened. Admiral Kang found him there one evening. She stood beside him in silence for a while. "Do you still have doubts?" she asked, sometimes. "When I look at all these names, all these people who died because of me, they did not die because of you. They died because they believed in something bigger than themselves. They died proving that humanity will never abandon its people, and because of that, thousands of humans across the galaxy are safe today. You honor their memory by understanding that." Taman nodded slowly. He placed his hand on the memorial wall, feeling the cold stone under his palm. These people had given everything for him. The least he could do was make sure their sacrifice meant something. He turned to face Kang. "Thank you. For coming for me. For never giving up." Kang smiled slightly. "That is what we do. That is who we are. And the galaxy knows it now." They stood together at the memorial as the sun set. Around them, the city of Earth continued its daily life. People went about their business. Children played. Life went on. But across the galaxy, on 1,000 different worlds, everyone remembered the same lesson. Humanity had proven something important. They were not the strongest species. They were not the most advanced. But they were the most loyal. Cross one human and you answer to all of them. That was the message of the Valon War. And it was a message that would never be forgotten.